Good morning, everybody. How's it going? Biddy just made a very cute sound over off to the side. She just goes meow while she's grooming, which I don't know, is that like singing in the shower maybe? Maybe that's what's going on with her. So, welcome to Half and Half. I'm Colette, and yeah, glad to be here with you this morning. We're going to start with some focus on the hands. So find a way to sit. You could sit on the floor. I happen to be sitting on a chair, and it seems like a nice place to sit. And we're just going to kind of go through the bones of the hand. Now, the bones of the hands are fairly easy to find. And one of the ways I find the bones is I just find the knuckles, right? So if you bend all your you make a fist or something, you can see all these knuckles. And all those knuckles are joints, right? All your little knuckles through here, those are different joints, and joints connect two bones, right? So if we do that, we could say, okay, in the thumb, we have these two bones, right? Because we have these two joints, right? These two bones make that up. In the fingers, we have three bones, right? Because we have these 1, 2, 3 joints here. Right? We can find that there. And then in the hand, we have these long bones called metacarpals. Sounds very existential. Metacarpals connect, kind of this big knuckle that your mom told you not to crack when you were a kid. Those big knuckles connect down to wrist bones. And we have a bunch of little wrist bones in there. And they're kind of small, irregular shaped bones. But you have these 5 long bones that connect that knuckle to the wrist all the way through, and then that webbing in between in the hands. So we're just going to take a moment and put a little bit of pressure on each bone, right? Just to bring it into your awareness a little more. And it's amazing how that, if you really like find the bone and hold the bone, I just have my first finger and thumb, hold the bone, it just brings a little more awareness and a little more ease in there. So I started my thumb. I'm going to hold that thumbnail part bone. I'm going to hold the bone that connects the first knuckle to the second knuckle. Then I'm going to go into that metacarpal bone. Maybe I'm even going to rub along that a little bit that connects the kind of big knuckle down to the wrist. So I could think of my finger or my thumb, this digit, going all the way into my wrist. Then I'm going to do that with all the other ones. So I'm going to do fingernail part of the bone. I'm going to go to that next kind of mid knuckle to knuckle bone. I'm going to go to the third knuckle to knuckle bone. And then I'm going to trace along big knuckle to wrist. Find that bone. Middle finger, mid middle finger, lower middle finger, and then long metacarpal bone down into the wrist, ring finger, mid ring finger. And you have to avoid your rings because it's your ring finger. And then long metacarpal. And then pinky. And just with a sense of like relaxing that hand as you do it. And then place your palm open and do a little like through the palm of the hand from your wrist, just out through the metacarpals, out through the digits. And I guess if I was being very clear, I would do the thumb too. And flip it over, do the same thing. Start at the wrist and then spread out. And then just see what it's like. Place your 2 hands somewhere where they can relax. I'm going to put them on my legs. And then just see if you can feel the difference between the 2 hands after doing that one thing. And imagine relaxing from your fingers all the way through your forearm to your shoulder to your jaw and back down. Like all of that is very connected. Maybe you even do a little like brush. Right? Kind of let the elbow hang, the forearm relax, the hand relax, the wrist relax. Take a breath. How does your breath feel through each side? I'm going to do the same thing with the other hand. So fingernail part of the thumb, lower part of the thumb, metacarpal down to the wrist. And kind of a light touch, right? We don't want to create a lot of tension in this hand. We just let go. So we just like touch it. Fingernail part, touch, release, touch, release, all the way down to the wrist, metacarpal. Middle finger, fingernail, mid middle finger, lower middle finger, metacarpal down to the wrist. Ring finger, mid ring finger, lower ring finger. Exhale all the way down. Pinky finger, mid pinky finger. Exhale. Lower pinky finger. Relax. Metacarpal down. And then spreading out from the wrist bones out through the palm of the hand a couple times. Flip it over. Same thing from the wrist out through the fingers. And then both hands release, relax, open. Feel what it's like, how both hands rest. Your sensory awakeness in the hands. You have more nerve endings in your hands than any place else, right? There's a lot of possibility for sensation through there. You also have a ton of nerve receptors in your skin, right? And we just did a nice, gentle sort of stimulation of the skin there. So how much could you just feel like awake through different surfaces in your hand? Open, relax, letting the wrist relax, letting the forearm relax. And then a little like brush from your jaw out through your hand, maybe your hand up through your jaw. Lots of connections through the fascial line from your jaw at your hand, through the muscles. And then just take a moment, right? I know we're getting kind of a slow start. We're just doing a little bit of like awareness, kind of body meditation, right? Think of it that way. Take a moment, close your eyes, just breathe. Feel how your breath moves through your right and left lung, your right and left rib cage. The movement of the lungs moves your ribs, moves your collarbone, moves your shoulder blades. As your shoulder blades and your collarbones move, that creates a little bit of response in the upper arm, the armpit. Maybe that little bit of micro movement in the upper arm creates a little bit of movement in the forearm, a little bit of response in the forearm bones, which creates a little bit of awareness response in the wrist, which creates response in the metacarpals, which creates response through the digits. So imagine the breath flows in through the nose into the lungs and creates a flow of energy all the way out your fingertips. And almost like a little butterfly flapping its wings, like the breath creates kind of a floating sensation in the arms on the inhale, And a nice, easy, heavy, kind of inward sensation on the exhale. All of that, letting your neck relax a little more. We're going to take a little twist, trickle down twist. Scott likes to talk about turning your head, easy sensation rotating around, and then back to center. And then turning your head the other way, easy look around the corner. Feel how that moves down into your neck, down into your ribs, and then back to center. So no big, deep instruction on this, other than let your body figure out how it wants to do it, right? My main thought is I'm going to look around the corner, and then I'm going to be aware of how my body sequences it. It's not going to be, for me, one straightforward movement. It's going to be a lot of little different movements. But mainly I'm just looking what's around the corner. And I'm thinking of relaxing a little bit more. Easing into the twist. Finishing back in center. All right. Take your left hand down if you're mirroring me. Now feeling your palm, your fingers, your hands, like you were going to kind of scoop through the air from the fingers. The arm reaches all the way up. Feel how the shoulder blade glides up with that. And then the fingers keep scooping over. And just again, kind of a gentle, was pouring water out of my ear. With an exhale, pelvis stays where it is. And back down. And then right fingers down, palm open. Think of just that nice gentle flow all the way through. I let it scoop up, collarbones float up, my shoulder blade scoops up. I pour water out of my left ear. Easy back to center. You don't really need to go searching for a stretch. Maybe one's there, maybe one isn't. I'm just kind of easily letting my body release with gravity. Some awareness that I don't topple all the way over, right? So there's a little bit of abdominal support coming on without thinking about it too much. And one more time the other way. You could take an inhale up and an exhale, pour it out. All the way out the fingers. And back to center. All right, slide your feet off your chair to come up to standing. If you're on the floor, just stay on the floor. I'm going to move my chair out of the way. And let's work our way into the floor if you're not on the floor. So however you like, finding your way down. And let's go to hands and knees. So this nice open sense in the palm of your hand. Now, what does it feel like to put your hand in the floor? Now, maybe you know about your feet and how your feet have arches. I think we know our feet have arches, right? So when you stand on the floor, your whole foot doesn't touch the floor, right? You've seen a footprint, the ball of your foot, the outside of your foot, and the heel of your foot, right? It just touches the floor. So your hands are a little different. They don't have that same arch, but they're also similar. If you look at your hand, especially if you're someone who's worked with your hands a lot, you have, again, kind of a callus part that goes across the knuckle area and along the pinky side of the hand, right? And then maybe you have a little more here. It's a little bit of dome in the center. It's kind of like the arch of your foot. So as you think about placing your hand and really contacting your hand in the floor, it also doesn't have to be your whole hand, right? Notice what does touch the floor. And maybe your thumb, a lot of people's thumbs sort of pull up and in. It's all right. But how much could it lengthen and release, right? How much does it naturally open up? If you think of that line of your wrist to your metacarpal to your digit, how do you experience that line? Through your thumb, through your fingers. Even if things aren't all the way in the floor, just see what is in the floor. Then we're going to do this little movement of the arm without moving your hand. So look at where your hand is, how it's set up. Bend your elbows like 5-10%. And then as you do that, I start with my elbows bending out wide, but I can keep them bent and I can turn them so that they now start to point back towards my feet more. But I haven't rolled my hand, right? I've kept my hand where it is. And then I can take that bent elbow and send it out to the side. So I'm moving my forearm bones and my upper arm humerus bone. But my hands can stay in place. They're staying solid, right? All the time we do this with our hands. Basically the same joint, same motions happening, but we're keeping the hand still and moving the arm instead of keeping the arm still, moving the hand. Now, you might find you have a small range of motion. You might find you have a little larger range of motion. It doesn't really matter. You're just exploring whatever yours is. And then maybe you start to notice how your shoulder blades have some relationship in this. Maybe your rib cage wants to move around a little bit. Can you line up your head to tail spinal alignment and leave it pretty steady as you just move the arm? Weird little muscles coming on, right? To help you do that. I like those oddly fatiguing muscles. And then in a moment, find what feels like kind of a neutral position of the elbow. And stick with that place right there. Now we're going to take a shoulder joint movement. The way we're going to take that shoulder joint movement, again, we're going to leave the hands in place. We're going to sit your whole butt back over your heels. And then your shoulder joint is going to open up. That long armpit feeling. Haven't moved my hands at all, right? Maybe you could sit back farther if you moved your hands, but don't. Just go to the place where you can leave your hands in place. And then back up to hands and knees. Hands stay spread out. Find that feeling. So maybe you're thinking, oh, there's another joint. It's not just the shoulder joint. What's the other joint that's changing as I go back and forth? In the arm, there's a few joints that are changing, but in the arm, there's another joint. And that's your wrist joint, right? Opening up, flexing, and extending through the wrist. And then maybe you still get all the spinal feeling, the hip feeling. And one more time back. And then rolling up to sitting. All right. So we're going to take just a moment and take the hand the other direction, right? So don't have to put a lot of pressure on it. Just do a little like hang the other direction, right? It's very, not very like elegant looking, right? We're just going to let our hands hang. Let the forearms release, let the fingers release, and feel that other direction. Also really useful. Take the arms out. Let the wrists hang a little bit. Move around that way. Yeah. Now we're going to take the hands behind us. So start sitting with your hands wherever they rest on the floor easily, kind of in front of you. Um, and then we're just going to slowly glide the hands back. And again, with this sense of keeping the whole hand on the floor, where's the place where your hands kind of stop? And it might be your wrists that you feel want to stop. It might be your shoulders that you feel want to stop. It might be here. Mine goes back a little farther, but that's what that is. My thumb wants to pull up on one side, right? So I'm just going to kind of explore what feels like my place where I can really spread the hand out, relax the forearm, be in a, clear position of the shoulder. And then from there, I'm just going to see what it's like to put a little pressure into the hands. So I'm not even taking my hips off the floor, just thinking, push the hands down. What happens as I push the hands down? Probably the weight wants to go into the heel of the hand more than it wants to go into the fingers or the ball of the hand. So I'm thinking very specifically about putting that knuckle part down more, that ball of the hand down more, not putting all the pressure in the heel of the hand. Now, maybe you just kind of stay with that and try to sit up really tall. That's a nice thing to do. You might even have your legs straight out if you wanted to play with this position. If you want to take it a little farther, we're going to keep pressing into the hands. We're going to press into your feet and try to keep all that relationship as you curl the pelvis up. Again, at a certain point, it's going to feel hard on the wrist or hard on the shoulders. So take your pelvis to the place where it feels like, I can keep everything pretty solid. For some people, that might be way up. For other people, it's not going to be so high, right? You're going to start to feel a little sooner. Just take where it is for you. A little bit of like pushing, feeling the push in the hands. And then lower back down. Reach the hands forward. Let them hang a little bit. You could take one hand, kind of push gently. Other hand, push gently. Get all that open. Hands glide back. Where can you stay pretty connected? Get a little press through the hand. As you press through the hands, you let the spine lift. You might stay there. You might bend your knees. Push through the hands more. Curl the pelvis forward. Easy elbows. Lowering your hips down. Let's roll back onto your back. Knees are bent, heels are a little closer to your sits bones. Take a moment on your back wherever you like your hands. And let's go back to the breath again. How does the rib cage move as you inhale? Move as you exhale. And how does that have a chain reaction? Ribs move, chain reaction down to the fingers, maybe even to the neck. Next exhale, we're going to float your hands up towards the ceiling. Palms facing each other like you could clap your hands. Hands right over your shoulders. Now just move your hands a little bit. Kind of in and out, no particular pattern. Maybe one finger at a time. Kind of move the wrists a little bit. Like you were a traditional Hindu dancer, Indian dancer. All these beautiful gestures and mudras they make with their hands, very intricate, like you were kind of making little movements and shapes and gestures with your hands. And then take the palms and face each other again, right? Just kind of waking up the hands there. And then from the fingertips, let's lift your arms up towards the ceiling a little more, fingers towards the ceiling, and then let your shoulder blades drop down. So kind of like a weird shoulder shrug, not an up and down, but like forward and back. So your fingers reach up to the ceiling, pulls the shoulder blades up, and then you let the shoulder blades release. Feel that movement in the blades. And then again, find your neutral position of your shoulders. We're going to trace the fingertips forward towards your knees. It's going to bring your head up. We're going to trace them all the way forward like your fingers are just on the same line as your toes. Brings your head all the way up into a little crunch. And then we're going to trace the fingers back up to the ceiling again. And then going again. Now I'm not poking into my elbows and reaching really hard tensely with my fingers. Again, it's just like this flow of energy out through the fingers, maybe with the breath, up and down. Next time you get to this position, we're going to play with an arm circle so the head stays up. You're going to open your arms out to the side. You're going to take them all the way back so they're back by your ears. And then up to the ceiling as you lower down. And then exhale, coming up. Now you could do this with your head down too if you want. It's a little more work with the neck here. Reaching out all the way back overhead and lower back to where you started. Let's lower your hands all the way to the floor and take a couple breaths. Now, there's some interesting architecture in your elbow that we don't think about that much. It's kind of a little minutiae. And is that a word? Like minutia, having minutia. Um, but the elbows, the way the elbows meet the upper arm isn't in a straight line. It has a little bit of a jut out in your natural bony structure, right? So then what that means is when I take my arms flat with the palms open, the most released state for the bones is a little bit like at an angle. That also means when I go the other way, palms down, having my arms totally straight is just going to be a real difficult thing. Like if I try to take my elbows really straight and place my palms down, it pulls my shoulders up. And then if I try to pull my shoulders down, it pushes my chest up. And then if I try to push my chest down, then my head has to pull. Like there's this whole chain reaction of thing that starts to happen. So if I bend my elbows a little, I can widen my shoulder blades. I can feel more of my hand and forearm down. Still might be a little up for you. That's okay, right? Just depending on what your hands are like. But very often for people, if you do that little bit of bend in the elbow, you let the shoulders be just a little off the floor. You can let the hands release, the forearms release. Find a little bit of connection through the hands there. Then that makes it much easier to get this rib connection here, not working against myself. So let your elbows really bend. Find that place for yourself. Then let's take your left leg out straight and your right knee in. We're going to float your leg up towards the ceiling and take a few leg circles here with that upper body position. Inhale across, exhale around and up. We're going to take a few the other way. Inhale open, exhale across and up. Take your right leg down, bend your left knee in, extend your leg out gently. Same thing, reach over to the right first, circle around. And then same thing the other way. Notice how your hands, your wrists, your forearms all relate to the floor. And then taking that leg down. Find a way up to sitting, however you like. I'm going to take a little roll up. And I'm going to pass the mic off to Scott Anderson, see where he takes you.
Hello, everybody. And I was doing much the same thing, and I can just feel the relaxation by making that contact with the bones. So let's continue this thread in standing. And as you stand, let your arms simply hang. No need to do anything with your arms or to your arms. Let your fingernails drip out of your ears. And not just one finger or two fingers. Explore the possibility that all of your fingers have a sense of releasing out of your ears as a means to release your neck. And technically, thumbs are not fingers. Release your thumbs too. Invite them to the party. And let that releasing from your ears all the way down to your fingernails include your wrists and your forearms. So now let's explore this idea of letting go, releasing neck tension more dynamically. Take your feet wide apart. Take your left foot in and then your right foot out. With your hands on your hips, bend your right knee, straighten your right knee. So as best you can, merging the movement with this imagery of releasing hands, palms, wrists, forearms as a means to release the neck. The next time that knee in the bent position, let's pause there. And then shift your torso from the vertical axis to the diagonal. Hand to knee. Now bring that upper arm forward and let's pause here for a moment. And now it's no longer fingernails dripping to the floor. But let that same quality of a release outward, in this case forward. And then sweep that arm through, still facing straight ahead. And as you continue releasing hand, wrist, forearm, add a little trickle down twist to look up. And then come on up, back to the front. The other side, right foot in, left foot out. Bend, straighten. So now we're back to being vertical in the sense that your fingernails drip out of your ears down toward the floor. Little fingers, thumbs, ring fingers, forefingers, and middle fingers. The next time that knee in the bent position, let's pause there. In a few moments here, still in the vertical, still torso straight up and down. And then shift your torso from the vertical to the diagonal. Hand to knee. Upper arm straight ahead, straight forward toward your screen. And with that sense of an outflow, sweep that arm through, still facing straight ahead. A little trickle down twist to check out your ceiling. And then come on up, back to the front, step your feet together. So a few weeks ago, we spent a lot of time on the sun salutations. So begin with the out breath to knit your ribs. Then keep that connection, keep that knit. Inhale, outstretch through your fingertips, reaching up. And then with the exhale, sweep your arms to the side and fold. We'll take a few breaths here, letting the weight of your head hang. And then with the inhale, reach the crown of your head forward, develop thoracic extension. We'll take a few breaths here. Then exhale back to folding. And then inhale, roll up, reach out through your fingernails as you do so, arms to the side up. Arms to the side down. Let's add a layer to that. Inhale up, outstretch through your fingernails. Exhale, fold. Inhale, gorilla. Exhale, step back, yoga pose, head down dog. So just like you worked on before, that sense of your hands on the floor, like the feet, hands have arches. And then with the next inhale, step forward, return to gorilla. Exhale, fold. And then arms to the side as you come up, almost like Da Vinci's Vitruvian model. Arms to the side as they come down. The same thing a little bit faster. Inhale up. Exhale over. Inhale, gorilla. Exhale, dog. Inhale, forward. Exhale, fold. Inhale up. Exhale down. This time, all the way to the floor. Inhale up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, gorilla. Exhale, head down dog. You may be thinking, wait a minute, I thought we were going to the floor. We'll take a few breaths here. And then down to your knees, down to the floor. So once you're on the floor, cross your legs. You've done some really interesting stuff with various movements, connecting with the bones. So whatever that may or may not feel like in your hands, wrists, forearm, up into your neck and jaw. So as best you can, lightly maintaining that awareness, that imagery. And trickle down twist to your right. Quite often what I find is people make this shift. There's a sense of the fingernails sort of hiking up into the neck. The best you can, maintaining that releasing, that outward flow. Then back in toward the middle. Few breaths here. And then trickle down twist to the second side. And back in toward the front. Few breaths here. And making note which leg is in front and which leg is behind. And that implanted into body memory. Now shift to knees bent, feet flat upon the floor. And take your left foot forward. Remember, I'm your image of you all. Bring that left arm around. Give that knee a hug. Other hand back behind you. Twist to your right. So same outward flow. Both the hand that's on the floor slightly behind you and the hand that hugs the knee. Releasing your neck from hands, wrists, and forearms. Back in toward the middle. Switch your legs around. Right arm comes across and twist to your left. So this time we'll hold a little quieter, giving you a little more time and space to work on some of these ideas on your own. Back in toward the middle. Switching legs. This time, optionally, if you don't feel a pinch in your groin, explore bringing that bent leg foot up and over and across. As long as that doesn't create a pinching feeling in your groin, it can be a useful movement. And just like before, left arm comes around to give a hug, right arm back behind, releasing hands, wrists, forearms as a pathway to release your neck. Back in toward the middle. Switch your legs around, twisting to the other side. And a few more breaths here. And then back in toward the middle. Cross legs. This time the other way. Remember, there's a cross you did the first time, sort of the default. Other cross this time. Trickle down twist to the first side. And a lot of twisting of the spine. So good to create freedom between the shoulder blades. So good to help release a tight, stiff neck. And back in toward the middle. Second side, trickle down twist. And then back in toward the middle. Both feet forward. So bring your arms out in front. There you can see fingernails, fingers, palms of the hands, wrists, forearms. And then round your spine forward. So if you're looking forward, you're not rounding your neck, you're tensing your neck. So looking down between your knees, hands maybe come to your knees, maybe to your shins, maybe way out there to your toes. Few breaths here. And then come on up. Colette does the mudras much better than I do. All right, now onto your belly. So on your belly, start off with your hands right under your shoulders. And then take a moment to use the floor to give you feedback on your torso, spine, neck, head alignment. And what we find is most people, their upper chest is off the floor and their head is toward the floor. And that's an artifact of head forward posture. So if that describes your alignment, take a moment to realign using the floor as feedback to show you where your spine is, how your spine is aligned. And float your hands up off the floor. Reach your arms back behind. As you reach your arms back toward your feet, all the same stuff we've been exploring in your fingers, in your palms, in your wrists, and in your forearms. And then slowly lift your torso up. And then slowly lift your straight legs up. They don't come up very high, do they? A few more breaths here. And then come on down. Place your hands under your shoulders. Press up to hands and knees. And then from hands and knees to yoga pose, head down dog. Few breaths here. And then come on down. And then let's set up for some breathing exercise. So maybe sitting up on a stool, maybe sitting up on a cushion, or maybe sitting flat upon the floor. So you've already done a little bit of breathing work. So as you breathe, the same sensibility of releasing your neck. By releasing the tension, pulling, that tends to be more distal. Release the proximal by releasing the distal. Now, many people report that this sense of releasing comes more readily with the out-breath. Let's take a few moments quietly and explore what your experience may be. Now, slightly deepen your in-breath. So still a sense at each out-breath, qualities or properties of letting go. Coexistent, slightly deepening the in-breath. Now, what in yoga is often called breath retention. So after the forthcoming out breath, pause for a few moments and then inhale. So how long should that pause be at the end of the out breath prior to the in breath? A nice rule of thumb is 3 counts. Now, if you start to feel out of breath, not such a long gap, not such a long pause. At the level of physiology, what we're doing is lengthening the period of time where there is more pressure in the rib cage. And sometimes that sense of more pressure can be counterintuitive. You think in terms of a bellows or a piston. With the out breath, the diaphragm moves up to press the air out. And that light pressing up increases the pressure in the thoracic cavity. And there's a little pressure receptor called a baroreceptor that when there's more pressure in the thoracic cavity, down regulates the nervous system. And so in addition to releasing your hands, your wrists, and your forearms, by slightly lengthening the gap after the out breath, helps to down-regulate nervous system stress and tension. Moving from sympathetic dominance toward parasympathetic dominance. All right. I think that's our time for the day. So before we close, in the chat, any comments, any questions coming through? All right. All quiet out there, it sounds like. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the weekend. And this coming Tuesday, I defend my doctoral dissertation. So if all goes according to plan, fingers crossed, I'll emerge out of that with a doctorate, with a PhD in hand. So I'll let you know how it goes next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.